In today's video, I'll be showing you the actual net worth required to be considered wealthy in retirement in 2026, and why crossing that line comes with its own unique benefits and risks. Through working with clients at this wealth level, I've discovered that being wealthy in retirement isn't just about bragging rights. It's also about how the tax code, Medicare, and the entire benefit system treats you differently once you cross that threshold, and some of it just isn't all that good. And that's exactly why I'm making this video today, to show you where the real wealth threshold sits, what happens when you cross it, and how to protect that wealth from what lies ahead. And in the first half of this video, we're going to clearly define what it actually takes to rank among the top 10% of the wealthiest Americans approaching retirement. And then in the second half, we're going to talk about what changes once you're there. What are the unique planning issues? What are the risks? And what are the opportunities that show up at that level of wealth? If you're new to the channel, my name is Ben Brandt. I've been a financial advisor for almost 20 years, and I want to help make your retirement even better. So where do you rank? If we're talking just retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs, the numbers are pretty interesting. So according to the popular financial website, The Motley Fool, citing 2022 Federal Reserve data, the top 10% of U.S. households by retirement savings had a median retirement account balance of around $900,000 and an average retirement account balance of about $1.3 million. So both of those figures represent the 90th or the 100th percentile group. Of course, averages, as we talk about on the podcast all the time, averages can be skewed, right? Somebody with a $30 million retirement account is going to pull the average up. That's why we focus a lot on medians whenever we can. So the median of the top 10% around $900,000. So I see this as being a pretty helpful anchor when we're talking about just retirement accounts alone. But of course, retirement accounts alone don't tell the full story, because for many retirees, the largest single source of their wealth really isn't their 401k. It's also in their home and their home equity, right? Home equity is often a massive portion of our total net worth. In fact, studies show that for older homeowners, home equity can make up a significant share, sometimes the majority of total net worth. In fact, nearly half of retirees say that their home is a major part of their wealth. So when you're talking about whether you are or aren't wealthy, we can't just look at retirement accounts, even though retirement is the topic we talk about on this channel. So net worth is really the real measure. And of course, the formula for net worth is total assets minus total liabilities. So total assets is everything, all of the above, right? Retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, what cash you have, any business ownership, and your home equity. Now, based on the Federal Reserve data, you generally need a net worth of about $2 million to be in the top 10% of U.S. households. There's also the financial site Don't Quit Your Day Job, and they've got a great net worth as a percentile calculator. So I'd encourage you to check that out. You can plug in your own numbers and see where you rank. Well, I think we'll put an example up here to look at. Now, the U.S. Census Bureau's 2022 wealth distribution table pegs the 90th percentile just a little bit lower than $2 million at about $1.6 million. So depending on the methodology, the threshold is going to fall somewhere between $1.6 million and $2 million to be in that wealthiest 10%. But for simplicity, and since we're talking about people approaching retirement, we're going to look at that top 10% and we're going to draw that line right at $2 million in total net worth. So that's our number, $2 million. Now here's where this gets kind of interesting. If you find yourself in that top 10% of retirees, primarily because of home equity, meaning let's say more than 50% of your net worth is tied up in your house in home equity, I actually have some really good news for you, because home equity often comes up as an amazing planning tool for one of the top concerns that retirees have involving fears around paying for the nursing home. So at our firm, we've had really great success over the last 20 years in when we view home equity as a form of either partial or full self-insurance. So thinking about your home equity in this way really helps to answer the question, how am I going to pay for the nursing home, or how am I going to pay for major health-related costs later in life? If you have enough home equity today to cover 2 to 3 years worth of cost in the nursing home, that can really serve as a powerful mental hedge. Because when the time comes, hopefully that's 20 or 30 years from now, if you're approaching retirement today, if we have enough home equity, we can either sell the house, we could use a home equity line of credit to fund the cost of care, we could use a reverse mortgage, or some combination of all of the above to unlock fresh capital to pay for the expenses of health-related things or the nursing home. And all those would actually be really tax efficient, whether we're selling the house or whether we're loaning against the house. So all those above would be very tax efficient. If your home appreciates roughly in line with inflation, even if healthcare costs grow slightly faster, you're still largely able to self-insure that risk. And the best part is that mentally earmarking your home equity for that potential liability of nursing home care can actually free you up to spend more confidently from your investment portfolio today. So if we use our home equity as a multi-line insurance policy, that frees up all of our portfolio then for more spending, which is, of course, why we saved it up in the first place. So slightly off topic there, but that's a pretty simple and powerful life hack for your home equity if that feels like a good fit for you. Now, if you find yourself on the other side of the equation, If a significant portion of your $2 million net worth is sitting inside retirement accounts, especially pre-tax retirement accounts, then you're going to face an entirely different set of planning challenges. And that's where things really start to change. So the first one we'll talk about is health care before 65. So if you retire before age 65, you're likely on your own for health insurance. If you have a $2 million or better net worth, especially if a large part of that is in tax-deferred retirement accounts, ACA subsidies, Affordable Care Act subsidies, are really tied to your income. So at higher income levels, those subsidies really disappear and you'll be facing the full brunt of those premiums. And what does that look like? Well, we'll pop up a little chart here, but that's based on the federal poverty level. So we're going to look at the key 2026 FPL federal poverty levels for guidelines. So for a one-person household, you're going to get some premium assistance if you're between about $16,000 and about the mid $60,000s for a one-person household. For a two-person household, anywhere from $20,000-ish to $86,000, you'll get some premium assistance. And of course, that varies by household, but a household of four, in between $33,000 and $132,000. Any amount over that, and you're really not getting any premium assistance at all. So for many retirees in that top 10%, they're going to end up paying the full freight for their health insurance if you retire before age 65. Now, if that's you, if you're not likely to receive any premium assistance, you're going to want to go ahead and budget between $1,200 and $2,500 per month until age 65, kind of depending on how much you plan on seeing the doctor. Now, IRMAA is not based on your net worth, just like our ACA subsidies are not based on net worth. They're both based on income. But as we've discussed in many of our other retirement videos, large retirement accounts generate income, whether you want them to or not, via RMD's required minimum distributions, right? Here's a super quick overview of IRMAA and what it costs. This is a really helpful chart that we got from Boomer Benefits. So you can see there's three tax filing statuses. There is the individual income tax return, the joint return, and the married filing separately. And based on different income levels, you're either going to pay somewhere in the range of $203 a month, all the way getting closer to $700 per month per person, depending on income. So if you're a super saver, if you're in that top 10% of all retirees, you're probably going to be somewhere on this matrix. Check it out for yourself and plan accordingly. So if we're not planning proactively for those required minimum distributions, you can see how our income would be pushed into these deeper IRMAA brackets. Now, speaking of required minimum distributions, at age 73 or 75, depending on when you were born, that's when those RMD's required minimum distributions begin. So just a little background on those. For those born between 1951 and 1959, that RMD age is 63. For the rest of us born 1960 or later, that age increases to 75. So if, based on what we discussed today, you are in the wealthiest 10%, and much of that wealth is in tax-deferred retirement accounts, which is the case for many super savers, what does that look like? Well, with roughly $2 million in pre-tax retirement accounts, you could easily be forced to take distributions starting in the range of about $100,000 and up. There's really two ways for them to go up. If your retirement account balance goes up, or if you get older, those RMDs go up every year. And we'll look at an example from one of our free spreadsheet resources here in a moment. But for example, if you're spending just 3% of your IRA balance every year, while let's say you earn 6% per year, RMDs really can spike significantly and spike your taxable income in your 80s, which is exactly why we built this free calculator we're going to look at in a moment. You can download it below and plug in your own numbers. And when you do, what you'll actually see is how your RMD percentages increase every year and how that income can accelerate later in life, even if your personal spending stays flat. All right, just very quickly, I've demonstrated this before, so I won't belabor the topic. But in our example, we looked at what if we've got a $2 million IRA, it's growing at 6% per year, but we are spending 3% per year. So it's growing at 3% in excess of what we're taking out. Of course, we've made the sheet so that you can modify your return anywhere from 1 to 10%. If our portfolio grows at 3% in excess of what we're spending, our $2 million portfolio is going to grow to about $3 million by the time RMDs start. Again, RMD is required minimum distribution. Now, if we're born 1959 or later, your RMDs are going to start at 73. If you're born 1960 or later, like I am, RMDs start at 75. So our $2 million IRA grows to $3 million at 3% per year, or 3% in excess of what you're taking out. So our first year's RMD is about $110,000. And that keeps going up. In fact, remember, there's two ways for your RMD to go up. If you make the mistake of getting a year older every year, or if your retirement account balance goes up. And if they both go up, then your RMD goes up. So what's interesting is that our portfolio kind of caps out at 3 million. You can see we go from 2.9, 2.8, 2.7, 2.6, right? Our account balance is going down, but interestingly, our RMDs are going up 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, right? So what we really want to ask ourselves is, directionally, we never nail it because there's just too many variables, but directionally, we want what's called the perfect RMD. I won't belabor that point either because I think I mentioned it in every video. But the perfect RMD is we satisfy our RMD by what we're going to take up for our lifestyle anyway, as opposed to an imperfect RMD where our RMD is just way more money than we would want and way later in life than we would want it. So to give you an example, at age 90, this RMD is about $160,000. That's $160,000 plus Social Security plus your pension plus all those things together. Let's say you only wanted at 90, you only wanted $100,000 a year. Well, it doesn't matter. You got to take $159,000 if that's your account balance plus Social Security, pension, whatever other income that you have. So if that's not what you want, if you don't want to artificially spike your income and spike your taxes, you've either got to spend more money sooner, you've got to give away more money sooner, either to people you care about or causes you care about, or you got to do Roth conversions. So this is just a fun little tool. Basically, it's just some basic addition and subtraction, and then this IRS divisor. So you can always click the link in the description and download this for yourself, play with the numbers, and let me know what you think. But we'll dive back into the regular video right here. Now, by the way, if you love retirement topics, but you can only allocate a couple minutes each week to learn about retirement planning, you're going to love my newsletter. It's called This Week in Retirement. And that's where I share my top 2 or 3 links of the week across audio podcasts, retirement articles, or YouTube videos. So you can check out thisweekinretirement.com to sign up, or we'll put a link in the description. So what separates wealthy retirees who want to preserve their wealth from those who slowly lose it to things like outsized taxes and Medicare charges? Well, the answer is flexibility. If I could break it all down to one word, flexibility is the key. If all of your money is in an IRA, well, the system tells you, RMDs tell you how quickly you can take your income, and you can't take it any slower. But if you have an IRA and a Roth IRA and a brokerage account, that's where the flexibility can really shine. We can dictate how much income we take and how much of that income is taxable. So for example, you might live on $90,000 per year while only showing $40,000 per year as taxable income, right? Maybe we're taking distributions from our brokerage account. If we're taking distributions from our Roth IRA, we've got flexibility, right? Same lifestyle, completely different tax outcome. That flexibility just gives you more opportunities to be right. Because honestly, we don't know where tax rates are going to go in the future. My guess is that they're going to go up, but I've been wrong before, right? I'm sure it'll happen again. So how we gain more flexibility in our retirement plans are by proactively acting sooner, right? Crafting a plan to maybe spend more money while we're younger, or maybe by opening up a brokerage account earlier, or maybe very small or very strategic Roth IRA conversions earlier on in retirement. There are really many paths to increase flexibility, and really there's rarely a one-size-fits-all plan. So now that you can see where you sit on that wealth threshold at $2 million and what happens when you cross that threshold, if you want help building a plan that accounts for all the things we've talked about, RMDs and IRMAA and survivorship and tax sequencing, right? That's exactly what we do in our Retire Ready Blueprint. Go ahead and click the link below and we'll get started on yours today. So if your net worth is somewhere around $2 million or more as you approach retirement, hey, congratulations, you're likely in the top 10% of all U.S. households. That's an incredible accomplishment. You've done an amazing job. You've outsaved 90% of your peers, but wealth at that level does come with unique planning responsibilities. So hopefully we've shed a little bit of light on those today. So my name is Ben Brandt. I hope this video has helped make your retirement even better, and I will see you on the next one.